this is pretty much the landing page, and this is around, or the first thing I'll point out is we tried to develop this application so that it was easy to use. So that's one thing that we're talking throughout the Army. They want applications that are simple, easy to use, that soldiers don't have to take, training courses to figure it out. So what we try to do is keep a consistent navigation pane going across the top that they can use to jump between different sheets within the Click app. We have some filter boxes, which is specifically around the unit hierarchy. And over here on the right, we just have some key performance indicators. And what you're seeing here is just basically a map of every single unit plotted across, across the world. And down below are all of the units and their current readiness levels. So for the Army, CP, RS, and T are basically different buckets. So C is overall, P is personnel, R and S are equipment, and T is training. And you can imagine green means good, red means bad, and everywhere in between. So if I filter on a particular unit, for example, what we've built here is, well, we can see what the current location of that unit is, so we can see where they're deployed, as well as the number of troops that are deployed there. But we can also see the home location of that unit, as well as mobilization scenarios. So, for example, the Army has hundreds of different scenarios, maybe even more. Let's say, for example, if the balloon goes up in North Korea, right, or if something goes down in Jerusalem, or whatever. What we can see is what units are going to deploy and where they're going to deploy to, and we can also see those individual brigade combat teams, what they're looking at from a readiness level. So obviously, if you know that things are going to be, potentially going down in North Korea, you can see, okay, what units are going to deploy, and you can start to see which ones are potentially not ready. And you can start just with the normal click interactivity. I could focus on that brigade combat team, and I can start to move throughout to figure out how to get them from a 3 to a 1. All right. So I'll click the unit overview, and what we can see is, from a navigation perspective, that takes me to a different sheet, and on this sheet gives me the overview. So I can see things like the unit commander, the unit patch. I can see information such as the number of soldiers assigned, deployable. I can see the overall rating trend, and you can see the Army loves green, yellow, and red. I can also see the unit training schedule, so I can see all of the units, the subordinate units underneath First Cav, what their training schedule is looking like, which field training exercises. This could be, everything from, if you look at from the equipment perspective, you could see, what pieces of equipment are set to be down, how long they're going to take to, be worked on. So lots of different cases where you can put it on a, some sort of schedule. But moving ahead to personnel. We've got lots of information around personnel, and you can see down here we even have the individual soldier details. So one of the things that a unit commander could use this application for is saying, show me the 29 soldiers who can't deploy because they're under criminal investigation, right? So now I can see First Cav under criminal investigation, and here are the 29 soldiers. I can see how many of them are medically non-deployable, etc. Right? And I can just keep moving forward as well. I can see languages. So if we go back to the North Korea scenario, if we're going to fight a war with North Korea, we're going to need Korean-speaking soldiers. So First Cav has 68, and just the normal nature of click, I can remove the filter on First Cav, and I can see that we have 6,500 across the entire U.S. Army. Okay, and I'll jump ahead to combat tours. And within the Army, one thing that they're trying to get ahead of is PTSD. So one thing we put in here is that we can take a look at and say, show me all soldiers who have had 4 or more combat tours, and we can see within the First Cav there's 773. So this might be a subset of soldiers that you may want to start looking at, identifying their medical records, other critical factors such as arrests or criminal investigation history, to see if they're prone to PTSD or maybe currently have PTSD. So from the equipment perspective, what we wanted to put in here is the dollar amount to get the equipment up to a fully mission capable status, or basically to get this equipment up and ready to fight. So we can see here Abrams tanks, for example, within First Cav, it would take $8.8 million to get all their tanks up and running. So what I can also do is I can just select a handful of these. So maybe like the top 10 families. And what you'll notice over here, this is basically this, I'll call it a chart, but it's really just an object. It's doing natural language generation. And what it's
Mm-hmm.
doing is it's doing the analysis of this chart. So if I read down it, I can see that it's telling me the total dollar amount to reach fully mission capable status is 18.1 million across all 10 families. It tells me what the distribution is, etc. And every time I place a new filter, you'll see that it spins and it gives me a new output. So this is starting to get towards that natural language generation, artificial intelligence that's within this platform. And of course, this is all happening on the fly. And what's one thing that's cool about this is you can actually tie this to time series information, and it can start to do predictions. So I know you guys are using Python and R and et cetera for analytics. So this is something you could use with that. Because of the short time frame and the data that they gave us, this dollar amount is only including the parts on order. I do know that one of the partners we were working with, they've got, they actually have models where just what you said, how you can start to look and identify how much it's going to cost. So from the personnel side, having the personnel, but also making sure that they're trained, right? So how much does it cost to train those soldiers for a particular, to put a particular piece of equipment on an airplane, right? And then also not only the cost of the parts on order, but how much it's going to cost from a transportation perspective and what mode of transportation you're going to use to get that from one point to another. So those are all things that could be incorporated into this calculation, but of course it depends on if you have the data. But of course, if you have the data, and one thing that when we talk and we show this to the Army, of course we preface it that it is just parts on order. But one thing is like what you said is that the Army, I'm not even sure the Army can tell you right now either what's up and what's down. But they have no idea how much it's going to cost either. And to go through those exercises is a long process to figure that out. So even getting them closer to, okay, even a 70% ballpark of what it's going to cost is going to be leaps and bounds. And that's probably from the Army side. I'm sure maybe the Navy's pretty similar. So it's almost like you can start chipping away, right? You get one data set in, one calculation, and get into one place that you can at least get closer to a ballpark. Yep. And if you get another data set to say, oh, hey, we've got all of the personnel costs that it takes to train, whatever. I'm not even sure what the MOS is for mechanics, but how much it takes to train one of those for all the different courses. You can throw that in, and it gets you one step closer to it. And you can do that just a few hours. So. So it sounds like you guys are focusing on more the equipment side. So I'm going to skip over this, and I'm going to go to the global equipment here in a second, where we can show a little bit more of the details. When we built this application, we built it without. We were supposed to build it for the chief of staff and commanders, but we never had access to the chief of staff. So when we were meeting with PEO, they kept giving us ideas or things that the chief and the commander and potentially everybody else would want to see. So we tried to build it to meet as many people's needs across the Army as possible. So what we ended up doing was, hey, this can be valuable down to the individual down in the motor pool, for example. So let's say, for example, if I'm interested in seeing my Abrams tanks. So you guys should know by now, Click has the ability to search across all the data. So I can come up here and just search for Abrams. And I can see we have Lynn family. So I'll select Lynn family. This is now showing me all the tanks within first cav. So I've got 260 on hand, 211 are FMC. And if you look down below, we can see the overall percentages. So if I see this particular unit, 4th Squadron, 9th Cav, I can see they have 14 on hand, and only 7 of them are up and running, so they're at 50%. So now what we can start to do is we can select that unit, and now I can go to the work orders. So this is taking me down to another level of information to say, here are the 7 serial numbers that are down, okay? And not only which tanks are down in their serial numbers, but why are they down? So here are the faults, right? So I can see there's some that are missing track link bolts. We even have ones that are down for fire extinguishers. So if I select the fire extinguishers, right, I can see, well, the date they became non-mission capable. I can see which parts are on order. And now when we start to get down to what you were asking about lead times and things like that, we got some information around around the supply chain. So I can see which parts are on order and what the status is at both the wholesale and retail level. So I can see which depots are coming from. So these parts are coming from, let's say, Sierra Army Depot. I can see which ones have been released and shipped. What we can also include in here as well is what those lead times are and how long it's going to take, to get those parts on there. So I'm sure that was somewhere in that in the data set. I had to get that data back, after after the solicitation was over. But that's absolutely something you could do as well. If you needed to see an individual part and how much inventory they have of that part, where that inventory is located, maybe outside of just that depot, but what depots across the entire globe have those, and the lead times from those as well. But the key is, if what Click is allowing us to do right now is we've got, I think, 30 different data sources. All of this is at our fingertips, and one thing you probably notice is that it's all lightning fast. So this is looking at every piece of equipment, every U.S. soldier across all of the Army, National Guard, and Reserve, and it's all I can get all the answers as quick as I can think about them. And of course, with the nature of Click as well, if I get down and I realize, maybe what the lead times are, and I can see that the lead times for these particular parts, I'm not going to be able to get these in time for maybe my particular mission, right? So what I may have to do is I may have to say I need to look outside of my units. I need to see where I can grab Abrams tanks from because my tanks are not going to be running in time. So what I can do is just up here, with the Click filters, I can just simply start to pivot, and I can say, well, I'm going to remove this filter on first cav because I want to see where Abrams are located across the globe. So I'll remove that filter, and now I can see all the Abrams tanks across the across the entire U.S. And if I'm at Fort Hood, Texas, I can say, well, I want to take a look at maybe these handful of bases because I know I can get tanks here in time. So I do a quick lasso search. Now, if I look down below, I can see all the units, where they're at from a readiness perspective. I can see that if I sort on FMC, we've got a couple units here that have 29 on hand. 29 of them are up and running. So I can start to identify to see, well, with these particular units, I could probably grab, a few of these. So if I wanted to even focus on a particular unit, I could even start to go back to say, well, I want to take a look at that unit overview. I can look at their training, see what they're going to need, if they're going to need these tanks, or reach out to their commander because I had the commander information, etc. So pretty cool analysis tool as well. And actually, all these screens can be completely customized. That instead of trying to answer all the different questions that may come up, and balancing between different sheets, if there's you can make these really specific to asking a particular question, a particular business process, for example.
So this is an example of an interface that the Army really liked. Obviously, what we've shown you before was out of the box Click, but this obvious the power of Click is we give you the ability to skin it any way you'd like. It's more the Call of Duty looking with your.
Yeah, they like to refer to it as the Call of Duty screen, but it's the same Click engine that's driving everything. So the engine that really makes us unique and different from everybody else out there. So the engine's driving it, but you've got your own custom view on it. So, if you guys like using D3 or you have your own custom visualization libraries, you can put those directly on top of Click and make it look and feel and act any which way. So this is one that's, they wanted to see something that might be a little sleeker, maybe something that's just a little more high level that the chief could take a look at. We have the similar thing in the Army where you can see which aviation brigades or quartermaster or whatever it is, right? That you could just filter and say, here are their levels, right? One thing I didn't show was, not just from the equipment status, but then you can also see the equipment, and you can see which units are trained for a particular mission as well, right? So if there's a particular mission of you need some sort of air assault, right? Air assault for something specific, you can see which units have been trained in that. So the unit metal here, here are all the mission essential task lists. So if I need to say, well, show me all units who have, conduct aerial reconnaissance missions. So I select that. I can see in first cap all the subordinate units. I can see when they were last trained on it, and I can see what their assessment was. So, P is that they're proficient in it, E is untrained. So I can see, well, this one was actually pretty recent, in 2017. So this might be the best one for, for that particular mission. So I can select that individual unit, right? So now I've got that unit, and now I can even jump over to the recent, in 2017. So this might be the best one for, for that particular mission. So I can select that individual unit, right? So now I've got that unit, and now I can even jump over to their equipment, or et cetera. So I can see which equipment they have, right? Get down to an individual soldier, see who that soldier is, right? Heck, you can see what their physical fitness scores are, when they were last deployed, et cetera.